All right, moving right along, our next topic we're going to deal with is a little bit more to do with files. And some of you are saying, well, we already covered files, and you're right, but we're going to do some advanced operations that allow us to do a little bit more with files than we've done. And we're even going to get into something called binary files eventually. So, quick review of what we've done before. Back when we talked about files earlier in the book, we had some things going on. Hashtag include Fstream was, we needed to include that at the beginning of our program. And the reason we do a lot of this work with files is because this big data era is coming. And you need to be able to import big sets of data. So just a reminder of why we're doing it. I'm trying to do more every year in my classes with big data files, but we're going to do one today, and I think you kind of will like it. All right, so once I have my pound include, a couple of reminders. I had OFStream output file. The OF was for output. Once I came up with the name output file, I used it and said output file.open. So here's my connection with some file. In this case, it's text.txt. Some of you send programs with me with the big long C:, so-and-so's folder / so-and-so / so-and-so / text.txt. And I go to run your programs. I'm like, oh, I got to go clean that out. But anyhow, we made the connection. We created the output file variable name. We made the connection. We did our work. And then we had to finally close the file at the end. Again, a quick review. If I had opened it for input, we would input a simple name as input file greater than symbols and a variable name. We also did something that we liked where we did this while input file where it kept reading them in until it reached that invisible, you don't see it, but it's in there, end of file marker. So some things we did, we were able to get our data, read it from a big data file. We didn't do a lot of writing to a data file, but processing and reading is what we were doing. So today we're moving on, and we're covering these sections 12.1 to 12.6. You did a whole bunch of code listings, so you saw some of the new twists and turns and peaks that we're going to talk about. All right, so before we had IFStream, this was for input. We had OFStream, this was for output. And now we're going to look at one called Fstream. And Fstream is for file stream. It's going to allow us to do some things that we really didn't get into before. And taking a look at a couple of them today, when we declare and when we use Fstream, we can use this for input or output. And the output can come in a couple of different versions. And we're going to see that in a second. So when I get ready and I start to use Fstream, as you saw in the code listings, I'm going to include these access flags along with when I open the file. Okay, so if I want to open it for input, I just do iOS 2 : and in. And some of you are saying, well, can't we just use IFStream? Yeah, sure can. Okay, just like down here for out, can't we just use OFStream? The answer is you sure can. But remember when we did this output file, if no file existed, it created a new one. And if a file existed, it overwrote what was already there. And sometimes we don't want to overwrite it. So we're going to start with this Fstream, and we can do some access flags like, what if I want to open it to output and append it? So over here is an example. Again, I need the pound include Fstream. This time, instead of IFStream, I might say something like Fstream data file. And I'm going to take that data file and open it. Here's the name of the file. But now I can put this flag and say iOS out. So it's really similar, but these access flags now need to be included with Fstream. And you saw an example of that when you did your code listing 12.1. Here's an example of opening it for output, as well as now I want to just append to the end of the file. And that code listing 12.2, when you looked at it, it opened the file, it wrote some stuff to the file, and it closed it. And then it opened it a second time, and then it appended to the end of it. So it looked as, instead of me having you pull it up, I will grab it quickly here out of my book. And the reminder was, we did this OF stream data file, and we opened it for output. We did the iOS out, we closed it, and now we're going to do it again, but this time we're going to output, and then we do the append by putting that single vertical bar between it. So we can add multiple options of how we'd like to write to the data file. And, you know, hopefully as you went through and you did the code listings, you typed the names in, and, you know, how are they represented? Well, Jones /N, because the carriage return, Smith, and so on and so on. And then finally, there's that invisible end of file marker. And that's how it's represented in most COM-Sci books, like a vector notation with EOF inside of it. Okay, questions up to that point? All right, the next thing that was in the book that we need to talk about is being able to format our output into a data file. And what I mean by that is, if you want to display a report or different things, we're going to go back to chapter 5, and we're going to start remembering some of the things that we did in chapter 5, because just like we displayed it to a screen, we can display it that way in a data file. And just two of the big ones that we looked at, one was the set precision, and when I did the 3, it formats to 3 decimal places, including rounding up. Set width, we said we want to put stuff in a field of size 8, and this also right justified it. So that dot set precision, that dot set width, things that we did back in chapter 5 are going to come into play here again. So you could start to make your output look nice instead of just one line at a time in that data file in case you want to print it out. Okay. As always, every time we learn about a new data type or, you know, new abstract data type, we talk about passing them into a function or returning them from a function. Well, I think returning a file would just be a matter of returning a file name. But if we wanted to pass a file object into a function, we have a nice little example here. But again, you had the same thing in code listing 12.5. Say I have in my main a call, show contents, data file. I'm going to pass that in. In my function heading, I might have something look like void show contents. Now remember, it's an object of what class? The F-stream class. Okay, so it's coming in and it's going to be ampersand file, some file name that we'll pass in. Taking a look at the constructor, again, the prototype. The prototype is void show contents. I'm going to be passing in a reference to an F-stream object, and I'm going to be passing in a string, which would be the name of it. Again, you have good examples of that in code listing 12.5. So I don't need to keep showing you all the code listings because most of you typed them in. You get it? Most of you. You folks do pretty good overall as a class, especially a class of size 19. All right. The last thing I want to take a look at is member functions for reading or writing files. So there are some functions that are included, and the one big one is this guy right here, the ever popular getLine. Okay, Now, when I would get ready and read something in from a data file, if I read in a string went to a certain point and it would stop. Glad you made it, Peter. It would go to a certain point and then it would stop. And that certain point was the space. And that was a default delimiter for when I wrote something in, this word delimiter. Right? So the delimiter is a way to read in until I hit a certain spot. We can declare the delimiter. This line right here is going to allow me to read in an entire line all the way out to the delimiter /n. So if I had a name like Ray J. Johnson Jr., and I just tried to read in a string, all it would read in is Ray, because it's going to read till the default delimiter of a space. If I want to read in an entire line from a data file, I'm going to declare it to be this. Read in from my data file a string all the way out till it reaches this carriage return, which is at the end of the line. Right? So a difference. I want to be careful not having a problem where I'm only reading in the first name. I want to be able to read in the entire name. Situation that we've had before. It's come up before. Okay. File.getch. What if I wanted to get a character at a time? I could use the .get function. Okay. Here's the getLin function. Here's the get function. There's lots of functions that you can use for reading and writing. These are the two big two. You may not even use anymore. But as I have a note here, this is going to get a character from a file. So yeah, I like being able to be remote because I have my notes already done. It's not like I'm writing all this on the board, especially when my writing here isn't the greatest. And when I write on the board, it goes down a notch. But it also kind of makes for a quick lesson. Are there any questions on what we're covering here in chapter 12 with file operations? Yes, no, maybe. All right. So I'm going to put you, we're going to now do a program. And it's gonna deal with all these strings. And here's what the program is going to do. I am back. I want you to write a program that goes to Sonnet 18. So why don't you take a second and everybody, I can stop recording. Sonnet 18.